What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Ahsoka, the new Star Wars live-action series on Disney Plus. It's been a long time coming, but we made it. Ahsoka, the series from Dave Filoni, is finally here, and I think people have been exceedingly excited for this series ever since Ahsoka debuted in The Mandalorian Season 2 in live action, played by Rosario Dawson, and we realized that Dave Filoni would be showrunning this Ahsoka series. And after watching the first two episodes, I think a lot of people's hopes have been realized in the sense that the Ahsoka series is straight up a sequel to Star Wars Rebels, of course, the much beloved Disney XD animated series from Filoni, the last time Filoni ran a show. Of course, his follow-up to the Clone Wars, where Ahsoka debuted, almost 15 years ago at this point. So it's been a lot of hype for this, and I'm a big Rebels fan. I think Rebels, the way that story concludes in animated form, is very special. The journey that you go on with those characters, the journey you go on with Ahsoka, who gets brought into the Rebels mix, I think is really important. Some amazing lore elements. I'm not going to spoil anything with Rebels. I think a lot of people are deciding, hey, I think I want to catch up on this. And it makes a lot of sense because the core cast of Rebels is directly involved with Ahsoka here. In this the first two episodes, we spent a lot of time with Sabine Wren, now played by Natasha Liu Bordizzo. And of course, Sabine was part of that ensemble in Rebels. We also see General Hera Syndulla, now played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Hera and Sabine were huge starring members of Rebels, and they are seeking the erstwhile star of Rebels, Ezra Bridger, who went off into wild space and disappeared with Grand Admiral Thrawn in the finale of Rebels. So Ezra, on one hand, is a MacGuffin for the series for people that aren't Rebels fans, people don't have a connection with that character. But for Rebels fans, people that know the story and understand the threads that are being picked up with Ahsoka, it's, I think, really exciting stakes because it's a story people have been invested in, wanted to see continued. And I think there's a lot of goodwill coming into a show like this because of Filoni's just, I think, touch and clear love for these characters. Dave Filoni's track record with the way the Clone Wars came into its own in its second half. Of course, the final season of Clone Wars, getting resurrected and coming out just a few years ago, how beloved Rebels is. And now, Ahsoka, people are riding high on the Filoni high. And now that we know he's connected to a live action movie, we hope does in fact go through with Lucasfilm, times are good. But in the meantime, this Ahsoka premiere really just felt like home to me as a big Rebels fan. But I think even if you're not necessarily a Rebels fan, don't really know who Hera is or Sabine is, and they're brand new to you, and you only know Ahsoka from her appearance in Mandalorian Season 2, her appearance in the Book of Boba Fett, I still think there's enough here to engage you, because I think what they're doing is done quite well. So just kind of going into this 2-episode premiere, of course, spoilers, right off the bat, a brand new thing with Star Wars TV on Disney Plus. We got opening crawl for the first time. The first time we saw a Star Wars opening crawl since the Rise of Skywalker. It's been a long time. That was pretty cool. And then that opening set piece, again, we see a Star Cruiser come into frame, again, just like a New Hope. And we see two new characters, Baylan and Shin. Baylan played by Ray Stevenson, Shin played by Ivana Sakno. New characters, Force users, Force wielders, and they are attacking a New Republic ship to free New Republic prisoner Morgan Elsbeth. Of course, Morgan Elsbeth was who Ahsoka defeated, captured in her debut episode of Mandalorian Season 2 with the help of course, Din Djarin and the Mandalorian. And it's kind of fun to pick up this thread right where it left off. And I really enjoy this opening set piece because Baylan, in particular, his attack is definitely meant to evoke Vader's attack on Leia's ship, Tantive 4, in Rogue One and A New Hope. Even the interiors look kind of similar with the white. It's familiar, but it's like loving homage. And, we're kind of off from there. Meanwhile, we switch over to Ahsoka, who's on some unknown world, completing this puzzle, seeking this device, which we learn is a star map. And we learn that this is a star map that'll help discover the location of Thrawn and also Ezra, because we know they're together, assumingly. It's fun watching Ahsoka kind of complete this puzzle. Just kind of in general, like the white colors of those columns and that like kind of like desolate, like ruined world looked really awesome. And then we get into this duel with Ahsoka versus these assassin droids with like electrostaffs, kind of like a Magna Guard nod there, and that was pretty fun. They'd self-destruct. Ahsoka escapes with the help of her companion and pilot, Huyang, which is the lightsaber droid from the Clone Wars. Apparently he survived. We don't know how. I'm sure that'll be a fun comic one day. But Huyang survived and is with Ahsoka, voiced by David Tennant. I think it's a really fun kind of like dry voice performance for Tennant as the droid. It's pretty fun. But yeah, definitely like just not a funny poll. Like the Huyang was the ancient droid. He'd been with the Jedi forever and helped Padawans construct their lightsabers for the first time. And now he's with Ahsoka. Pretty fun. From there, you get like, I think, fun nods. Of course, the call sign for Ahsoka is Fulcrum. That's a Rebels nod. We get reference to Home One, of course, the Rebellion's flagship, all the way back from the original trilogy. We see Hera, and they have a briefing in the Home One briefing room. Of course, a big nod to Return of the Jedi. Again, a few less people in this briefing room this time around, and we see the Jedi, or Force wielders, Baylan and Shin. And I think it's fun how, like, later in the episode, the way they kind of determine who these people are is Huyang's ability to, like, analyze lightsabers, because he was involved in the creation of all of them with the Order, figuring out that Baylan's skull is, in fact, a former Jedi, disappeared at the end of the Clone Wars, evidently survived, seemingly went off to the unknown region, seems to be now dabbling with the dark side. Of course, the lightsabers have been purged. They are red. Is he a mercenary? We don't really know, but interesting. I think Ray Stevenson, with that performance, is pretty fun. He's someone who I think has always been a pretty nice presence in film. Unfortunately, just tragically passed away, I believe in his late 50s, just this summer, unfortunately. But it was a nice nod to have Ray Stevenson come back into Star Wars. He was the voice of Gar Saxon in Clone Wars, and now he's in live action. That's cool. Similarly, you had Clancy Brown reprising his role as Ryder Asadi on Lothal. He was, of course, the voice of Ryder in Rebels. Like to see that as well. But yeah, I think this premiere is interesting because you have, I think, intriguing new elements. Really, Baylan and Shin. Morgan kind of being a more interesting character than I expected, because we get this reveal that she is, in fact, a Night Sister of Dathomir, a surviving Night Sister. As far as we know at this time, the only Night Sisters that are still alive would be Morgan Elsbeth now and Marin from the Star Wars Jedi Survivor video games. That was unexpected. I did not see that coming. That was cool. Now we found out that the world that Ahsoka found the map was, in fact, an ancient Dathomiri world from long ago. Very interesting. But yeah, like that central conflict where Baylan and Shin seem to be working in service of Morgan, who in turn are working to get back to Thrawn. And Thrawn will be the galvanizing force to unite these Imperial remnants and take back the galaxy from the fledgling New Republic. And the opening crawl suggests a lot of this as well. I think that's a really solid hook. And, in the second episode, you get some familiar themes that we just got in The Mandalorian Season 3, which is that at this time, the transition from Galactic Empire to New Republic, it takes time. It's gray. It's honestly a realistic depiction of the transfer of power, such as that would be, where a lot of people that were working for the Empire are now working for the New Republic because it's a logistical manpower type thing. So as a result, there might be people in positions of power that are actually sympathizers to the old cause, thus the bad guys, right? It's a familiar theme. We just saw that in Mandalorian Season 3, but I like seeing that. I think it kind of makes the world feel more lived in at this time. Yeah, pretty nice. Let's see. Of course, Sabine, right? We see Sabine. Another interesting reveal, which is completely new, was that Ahsoka had attempted to train Sabine as an apprentice, even though she doesn't actually have like much of any Force aptitude, um, and didn't work well. Like they ended up butting heads. They seem to have broken it off, and there's a bit of a cool relationship between the two. Really like that addition. That was not something I saw coming. Um, I like the fight that Shin and Sabine have, where Shin and her assassin droids take back the star map, and thus, after Sabine is able to unlock it with her artistic eye, that's something that like that's a nod to Rebels and Sabine being an artist, right? You don't like understand that like one-off line and thus explanation of her abilities if you didn't watch Rebels. Obviously, it's something you can yada yada and watch. Oh, Sabine can figure out how to open the map, but it makes more sense if you know how the character is. Funny enough, I really like in episode 2 where Shin and Balin they go to this planet that the map told them to go to, and Morgan meets them there. And Morgan, through her Force abilities as a Night Sister, is able to manipulate the map in this location and to make like a more like 3D, like all-encompassing, like spherical map, which in turn tells them where they need to go to find Thrawn, more or less. It's fun nod, I think, to like the Star Forge in Knights of the Old Republic. Similar kind of concept. In general, I think a star map, just visually on screen, really fun science fiction manifestation of, future technology. It's always cool. Turns out they're building something called the Eye of Sion. Looks to be a big hyperspace ring, similar to the hyperspace ring that Obi-Wan uses with the Jedi Starfighter in Episode 2. Basically, one of those on steroids. They basically were secretly able to build a series of hyperspace engines for this big ring on Corellia under the New Republic's nose, and they're going to use that ring presumably to go to where Thrawn is, somewhere out in wild space, the unknown regions, wherever. Cool. And I think it's pretty plausible that the New Republic wouldn't realize that there were people working for them but had ulterior motives. That's uncovered by Hera and Ahsoka. And in the process, you get this duel between Ahsoka, this is on Corellia, this duel between Ahsoka, assassin droid, and this former Inquisitor called Merrick, so we're told. Um, Very curious about his identity. Is he just a brand new Inquisitor we hadn't seen before? Is he an Inquisitor we've seen in the background or in comics? Could be the only Inquisitor left. I guess maybe Riva, we know, is still alive as of several years before this. She hasn't been killed, but it seems like most of the Inquisitors are gone at this point. And either way, this Merrick guy, he's not being an Inquisitor for Vader. He's gone. All the Inquisitors are gone, so seem to just kind of come into the service of Morgan and Balin and thus Thrawn. Kind of interesting. I hope that's answered fully, but that was a fun duel. I really like how much like we get to see like ships in atmosphere and like low, like on planets and stuff. Like I think the speeder bike stuff on Lothal with Sabine looks great. Watching Hera fly the Phantom up into atmosphere, tracing down the ship with the hyperdrive. That was pretty epic. Really fun to see Chopper, of course, in live action again. The shuttle that Shin's flying when they pick up Merrick at the end there after the fight with Ahsoka. That looks really cool. It's fluid. It's fast. It feels like Star Wars. I really liked it. Yeah, what else? I really liked in the duel at the end when Merrick's escaping, Shin's picking him up. Merrick's, double-bladed cylindrical Inquisitor lightsabers like flying back, and Ahsoka has this like super nonchalant like shoulder shimmy so it doesn't hit her. Love the swag on that. Of course, fun to be on Corellia in general, famously, of course, the homeworld of Han Solo. I believe we've never seen it in live action until now. That was cool. I think the assassin droids have been fun through these 2 episodes as fighters. Yeah, I think just in general, like, super exciting where this is going. We know Lars Mikkelsen is reprising his voice work now in live action as Thrawn. Can't wait for that. Thrawn in general, a character with true gravitas, whether you know him originally from the Heir to the Empire Timothy Zahn books, where he was basically the introduction, the beginning of the Star Wars expanded universe, and the introduction to many to extra Star Wars storytelling in addition to the films. Way back, obviously Thrawn has been redone in new canon, had a huge piece in Star Wars Rebels, and thus has a direct relationship um, with Sabine and Hera and Ezra, of course. So it's very exciting to see Thrawn in this. And I think a lot of people, myself included, are kind of feeling like the Dave Filoni live action movie that was announced could perhaps be the culmination of the Mandalorian storytelling, the Ahsoka storytelling, the Book of Boba Fett storytelling as well, yada yada. All that would probably be culminating into a movie about Thrawn, featuring all these characters. I would assume that would be I assume that's where it's going. I think that would be a really cool way to kind of wrap up all this story, in terms of this storytelling that's taking place after Return of the Jedi, before The Force Awakens, and putting I think a defined endpoint on the storytelling that began on Disney Plus. That's what I want to see. We'll see what happens. I think it's probably the most likely of those live action movies to happen, just because Lucasfilm isn't going to do Dave Filoni like that. He's been the most consistent creative force at Lucasfilm apart from George Lucas himself. So, and of course, George does no longer work there. So, that's exciting. But in the meantime, I think the show looks great. As Rebels fan, it felt so good to be back. It felt like the old times. It felt like home. The trailers basically revealed very little that we didn't see in these first 2 episodes. You always like to see that. You like to have that surprise. Obviously, we know we're going to see Ezra. Wouldn't be shocked if we see Zeb again, given that he had the cameo in Mandalorian Season 3. Unsure. Don't really need to see Din and Grogu. I'm not really expecting that. I think we have enough recognizable characters people are invested in between Ahsoka, the Rebels people, and of course Thrawn. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to know more about Merrick. Of course, Balin seems like someone with some substance to him. I think Shin is Balin's Padawan. Wouldn't be shocking if she perhaps turns back to the light or goes a little bit gray. We'll see. But yeah, I'm feeling really good. Yeah, I'm excited for these next 8 episodes. Also, notably, this Ahsoka premiere debuted 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday night. The show will be moving to, I believe it's Fridays or Thursday nights moving forward. I hope they stick with the 9 p.m. timing versus a midnight West Coast, 3 a.m. Eastern thing that Disney had been doing, Netflix continues to do. You don't have to overthink it. Follow the HBO, have a dedicated time that people always know and remember, and also dedicate time that people around the world, or at least around various time zones, will congregate to and flock to, and you can get people engaged. The whole midnight and after midnight debuting of series, and thus people watch the show at all different times over a 24-hour period, that doesn't really serve the show well, So I really hope they stick to the 9 p.m. launch. They should. We'll see. Yeah, that's Ahsoka. First 2 episodes. Very excited to keep watching this. I have a really good feeling about it. But let me know, how'd you feel about the Ahsoka premiere? What was your favorite aspect about it? What are you looking forward to seeing and having answered, etc.? And for more TV reviews, more Star Wars, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.